What's up, everybody? Got a couple updates for you before we jump into this pod with David Scruggs. This is back from September, so I'm about to publish 3 episodes that we did in September, October, November that just got buried, frankly, and I feel terrible. I'm going to apologize to David and everyone else that we've had on recently for being late getting these out, but nonetheless, still great content, still conversation you're going to enjoy. But I wanted to run through a couple updates just for everybody. So we are now doing webinars twice a week on the core platform and Spectora Advanced, and in specific, how to use actions to upsell, get more business, get more revenue per inspection. So I'm going to put a link in the description for these webinars because they're really helpful. The attendance has been good, but I want to make sure everyone knows that there's extra learning and onboarding and teaching that you can get from us through our webinar series that we're putting a lot more effort and putting more people into. We recently went to a conference, went to the ASHI conference. Different vibes, obviously. Less attendance overall than, say, the last couple years, right? Because there's been a shift in the economy. Everyone knows interest rates have gone up. Home sales volume has come down. But there was glimmers of hope. There was a lot of inspectors there that had a good end of January. Activity was picking up at the end of January because rates came back down. 30-year fixed mortgages came down below 6% again for a second there, which I think could be the new normal. And I think it's okay as long as the mortgage rates settle in at somewhere steady so buyers can feel comfortable with what their payments are going to be. Big takeaways, though. Some inspectors enjoyed the pullback and the break. Some of the busier ones needed that. Some new inspectors are still very encouraged, and some of them are actually glad there's been a little bit of a flush out of inspectors in the industry, a couple thousand less than there were last year this time in terms of active inspectors in the business. So that just means more opportunity for the future if you're committed to this industry. So that was interesting. I didn't expect that from some newish inspectors. But the experienced solos and multis we met at the conference, overall, not panicked, not too worried. They believe this year is still going to be a solid year, just with lower overall volume than last year, obviously, in the year before, because we're in a different environment. We can't expect to snap back to the COVID bubble kind of era, as I'll call it, which is the last couple of years. And then, current environment wise, just an update from our end. We're seeing volume pick back up. End of January was great for a lot of inspectors. New inspectors still getting into business, but not at the rate they were last year, the year before. We expect that to come back as rates kind of settle in. One other update, we here at Spectora have brought on a couple account managers. So just more folks to have hands-on conversations, to have one-to-one conversations with a lot of you out there. And so you can expect more engagement and more dialogue as our team grows and as the user base grows. We never want to get away from our core of kind of listening to you guys and having those conversations about your business, about how we can help grow your business, all good stuff, and stuff we got away from there for a bit as we grew. But there's going to be roundtables, there's going to be lots of check-in calls, just to hear how things are going and see how we can evolve, because this industry is changing faster than ever. When you think of some of the acquisitions, you think a lot of the industry getting bought up by the Porches of the world, insurance companies, things like that. So things are changing fast, and we always want to be ahead of the curve and chat with you guys and make sure we're on the cutting edge of all that. So hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll be putting out, like I said, these last couple episodes from a few months ago, and then look for a lot more content coming out from Mike and I and the team here in 2023. All right, enjoy.
But I'm David Scruggs with Firebase Home Inspections. My company's been alive since February of this year, and did not know it. One of your guys that called to check in on me, I don't know, about a month ago now, he was like, "Man, you've done 97 inspections." And I'm like, "What?" So the journey, and I just started talking to him about that, and he was like, "Oh, I've got to get you hooked up with Kevin, because it's just the journey of it. I mean, it's been pretty amazing." I mean, it all started last September. I came down with COVID, and my company was going to force vaccinations. I was a full-time mechanic for a big corporation that made sports drinks, but it's I don't know, Gatorade, whatever. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
we'll say Gatorade. Yeah,
Yeah.
big corporation.
So I was a mechanic,
Mhm.
coordinator, actually, maintenance coordinator, and
Like on machinery, like working on machinery in a
yes,
factory.
sir.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I was actually the coordinator for the fastest producing line Gatorade has. They
Okay.
have like 12 plants in the United States. Our plant has 3 lines, and I was in charge of line 2, which is the fastest running line Gatorade has.
Wow.
So it produces it outproduces the other 2 lines we have put together. So it was a very important role.
Yeah.
And so I was out with COVID, and they were going to force vaccinations. They were talking about February of this year. And my wife was like, hey, she was headed off to work one day, and she was like, hey, why don't you look into that home inspection thing? And the reason we had thought about it, because we had a home inspector twice. We bought an old home, and then we kind of fixed it up and sold it, and we built a brand new home that we currently live in.
Okay.
And we had him come inspect that too. Anyways, he was a great inspector, just very dry, just a very no sense of humor type guy, just you cut to the chase and all that stuff. And I was like, man, if he was a family friendly person, he would be awesome. And my wife was like, this was way back then. She was like, well, maybe you ought to do it. And I didn't think I could do something like that. But anyhow, so
why not? I want to drill into that. Why did you not think that, but your wife did? Because that's fascinating. That wife.
My wife works for the school systems.
Okay.
So I'm the breadwinner in the family. I'm the one that made the money. And I was worried that if I left and tried something or whatever, then what if it failed? What if the home housing market went to a big low or something? It was scary. Yeah. Because, without my paycheck, we can't live where we're living. So, so that I can kind of dive into how we slowly worked into that. But I decided to go ahead and just look into it. So I started watching YouTube, and I found Chris from A Action. Mm-hmm. Out in Houston, Texas. And I watched the whole day, nothing but YouTube of his videos. And I instantly fell in love with home inspections. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And then the next day I found InterNACHI. And so I started my very first class the very next day. I started doing some classes. Mm-hmm. And then that weekend, I found Spector Spotlight. I think I found it in a little ad or something whenever I was going into InterNACHI or something. And I was like, ooh, so I started listening to some of the inspectors you were talking to, and not just that, but everybody, the marketing people and stuff like that. So I knew that from what I heard from your podcast and what I heard from Binger Rico, watching him on his videos, that marketing is your number one thing. That's what your job is, marketing. Your home inspector on the side, more or less. So I knew that I could do good at that because I know me. I'm a very personal person, very friendly. I love talking to people. I don't meet strangers type thing. So for the next 3 weeks, all I did was watch Chris from A Action, do my classes on InterNACHI while I was out on COVID, because they hit me pretty hard, really hard. And then watch Spector Spotlight. And the Spector Spotlight was kind of like, it kind of pumped my chest up. I'm waiting for the next class. I want to get in my next class. So I ended up finishing InterNACHI in less than 4 weeks. And
wow. Is that fast? Is that considered? That's pretty fast, right?
I honestly don't know. I know that I did it pretty quick in my eyes,
Yeah.
But then me and the wife were talking about waiting to the beginning of the year to start the company because of tax purposes. I didn't feel like dealing with taxes. Plus, it was the winter time, and I've heard that it's kind of slow in the wintertime. Right. But Florida apparently don't have a slow season.
Never. No.
Anyway, so I went and took my Florida test in January. That's when they had availability for me. Okay. Passed it first go, passed it, and then I started my company. And we were trying to think of a name, and I wanted something to do with my veteran background. And so we chose Firebase. And Firebase is actually an air support area. It's like a round place up on a hill that they have like howitzers and stuff back in Vietnam, and they would support the ground troops. And I was like, that's pretty cool. My wife used to work out CrossFit at a place called Firebase. And I'm like, well, maybe this would get her wanting to start this company. You know, and stuff. And she was down. As soon as she heard Firebase, she was like, yes, that's what I want.
I'm in.
And you know, I love the colors black, red, and white together, so I chose that. But so I got licensed. I decided to take a week off of work. I started with nothing. My family bought a few little things for me for Christmas, like an outlet tester and things like that. I bought a cheap moisture meter and a hand-me-down infrared camera.
Okay.
That's what I started with.
Yep.
So I went out and I decided to market. I took a vacation, a week off at the very beginning of February. And I had a friend of mine at work that said, hey, I need wind mitigation done. I was like, I can do that. And so he's like, all right. And I was like, well, I'll be there Sunday morning. He was like, oh, okay.
How did your friend know you could do that? Or did he just mention it kind of in passing?
I kind of mentioned it to him.
Okay.
It was a friend I worked with at the mechanic job.
So he knew what you were getting into.
Yeah, he knew I was getting into. So my problem was, though, is I wanted to go with Spectora, but financially we were like, I don't know if we want to dive into paying all this money for all the software and things like that. So I decided to go with a different company that was free. And I instantly regretted it on that first job, on that wind mitigation job. And so on the way back home from that job, I actually called my wife and I was like, hey, we're gonna have to go with Spectora. We're just gonna have to pay the $99 a month and just hope that it pays for itself in return. And I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I'm the person that answers the phone. I'm the person that schedules the jobs, and I'm the person that does the inspections. And my agents love that, the fact that I answer the phone or respond. Anyhow, so we got into our first week. I went out and I kind of met some people at realtors' offices and did some open houses. And 3 people I met in particular. One of them was named James, and he didn't call me for like a couple weeks after that. Mm-hmm. But come to find out, he's a high producing agent. And he had a guy that he used to use that I guess moved. And he works with investors. So for a while there, he was bringing me 2 or 3 jobs a week.
So how did you meet him? You went in.
I met him to an open house. I just went into an open house.
Can you walk me through the thought process of how you knew to do that, what it felt like, and then like what did you say? Like it's always a scary thing, right?
Yes, it is. Spectora Spotlight. Okay. There was a guy you had on. I'm not good with names and I don't remember, but I remember he said he used to just go find, 10 open houses and he would go driving around. And so that's what I did. I found 10. I never made it to the 10. Yeah. But this one in particular, I went in, I introduced myself, I already had my uniform and everything.
Dressed like that. Yep.
Exactly like this, except for I didn't have the patches at the time. And I walked in and I was like, I'm David with Firebase Home Inspections. And I'm just now starting a company. I am new, but I'm certified through the best certification company in the world, Internachi, and I have this software. And I had already made me a sample report because I did my inspection of my own home, and I handed it to him. I did a lot of work at the beginning of that first week when I took that vacation. I had to get all your stuff put on because I didn't do it beforehand. So I was trying to get everything, all that on my website and everything. I built my own website. Anyway, so I walked in, shook his hand, said hi, and he asked me, he said, what's your fees? And I'm like, at the time I wasn't really sure about my fees, but I kind of had it in my mind. So I just told him, and he was, okay, well, that sounds okay. But he ended up calling me a couple weeks later, and I did my first inspection for him. The only complaint he had was you didn't do the temperature differential, which that's not standard practice.
Right.
But you know what? I added it to my software, and now I do it on every inspection.
Interesting.
So, yes. And so I added it to my software. I put it in there, and I do my temperature differential on every single home inspection now, because I have found 3 or 4 other agents that used me for the first time that was impressed with that. They're like, wow, I've never seen an inspector do that. Huh. So that's something that I added. And then I met this other realtor named Brittany. Mm-hmm. And this one would turn out to be pretty awesome too. She was just getting back into selling houses and buying houses. And so she was like, I want to use you. I'm just getting back, and my old home inspector, he doesn't do home inspections anymore. So I want to use you. And this is almost $1 million home. So
This
this
is
is
another
my
open house.
first.
You walk in.
No, no, no. I walked into this realtor office on this
Mm,
one and said hi. There was
okay.
3 agents in there. Um, so she used me that weekend on this inspection. It was almost $1 million home, and it's my first real home inspection. And I did it with the Spectora app. What I did is, because I didn't really have time to make my own report, I used Ben Gramico's, because I looked at it and the way he explains his narratives is just like you're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's who I am. I like explaining things as if I'm just talking to you. So, so I used that, and it was so easy getting through this house, even though it took me like 5 hours because I kept going back and checking things. It was a pool inspection, wind mitigation, 4-point home inspection. And I was scared to death because the first thing I found was a leaking roof.
Oh gosh.
This was my first full home inspection.
Did your heart drop? Because
My
that's
heart dropped.
just
It
crap
was
luck.
pouring raining that day too. Pouring raining. I go to walk in the garage. It's got an inch of water in the garage because the driveway comes down to the garage, and then the side door was letting water in. And then I go over, and you could see where there's repairs on the ceiling right around the fireplace. I start doing a moisture meter check. I'm like, whoa, this thing's going off the hook. I get in the attic. You can see the efflorescence on and it was a nightmare.
What went through your mind when you saw those? What went through your mind when you saw those one?
I was scared that this is my first job, and this lady's going to be like, he's a deal killer. And, she's going to tell the next agent and the next agent. I was scared. I really was scared. But I called her on the phone. She was actually on vacation up in Maine. I called her on the phone, and I was like, hey, Brittany, I'm not sure what you want to hear. She said, just tell me the truth. I said, good, because I'm an honest person. You have a hole in your roof and it's leaking. And this was the agent. And so she was like, oh man, that sucks. And I was like, in the garage is flooded too when it rains. And, there's a lot of problems. And I said, you want me to call and explain this to your client? She goes, if you would, please, because I'm on vacation. So no problem. So I call the client and I'm like, sir, you got a few problems here. You got a leaking roof and you got this and that. Nothing that can't be fixed. You could put a French drain in front of your garage so it diverts the water. You can get the roof patched properly and get all that fixed. So if this is your dream home, don't let that scare you away. That's something I also learned from Ben Gramico. So I was like, he was like, you know what? And I explained everything to him. He was like, I really appreciate your openness and your honesty. We'll go look into this when you send the report and blah, blah, blah. And so I was able to send the report that night, which really impressed the agent. She was like, wow, you got the report to us that night. And so my goal was to have the report to people before I leave. Mm-hmm. But this being my first one, and I had so much to clean up on it, to move around pictures and stuff like that. I was like, just let me get it done at night. So that's what I did that night. Now I get jobs done as long as I'm in a good service area. The report's sent out before I leave that home.
Beautiful.
So that's what I offer now. And there's a lot of agents that use me because of that.
When did you get to that point? About how many inspections do you feel like it took to say, like, you know what, I published from the driveway on my way out?
About 4 or 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not even joking.
That's amazing.
The Spectora software, listen, the Spectora software makes your life so much easier. I played around with other things because it was free and things like that before I become a home inspector, before I started the company. And, they're not user friendly. The cool thing about Spectora is once you've got your report set, you just click a button, take a picture, and move on. And that's so awesome that I don't have to rewrite my narrative or and when you show the client the report, they're like, whoa, this is awesome looking, or the agent, they're like, wow, because I'm gonna tell you right now, there's only one home inspector in my area in Central Florida, or my immediate Central Florida area that I know of, that uses Spectora. And their report looks exactly like mine, which is kind of weird. But either way, yeah, I had an agent that sent me something and say, hey, can you take a look at it? Anyways, so I feel like I got an advantage there. But one thing led to the next, and Brittany talked to a guy named Daniel that's also at that same realtor office, Wheatley Realty in Claremont. And he didn't call me. He tried to do the online scheduling, mm-hmm. and he didn't finish it. Right. Mm-hmm. But the cool part about y'all's stuff is it sends me an email saying, hey, you have somebody starting, and it gives the phone number. It's like a contact. And so when I noticed he didn't finish it, I called because, I'm starting my company up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So I called and I was like, hey, Daniel, I just noticed that you tried to schedule. Were you having problems? Because I was trying to figure out, I thought for 10 minutes before I called him, what am I going to say? I don't want him to think I'm,
yeah, too creepily. Yeah. You're like just watching his every move.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, I found somebody that could do it a little bit cheaper. And at the time, I didn't know he was an agent. I thought he was just a client.
Huh.
And he goes, I found somebody to do it a little bit cheaper. And I'm like, well, listen, I don't know how cheap the other inspector is, but I can promise you that if you go with me, you will not be sorry. You will love the report. I'm always responsive, which is something that the agents absolutely love about me. I answer the phone. I've been in the attic, upside down, underneath the house. I've answered the phone. That's just who I am. But he was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and give you a shot. He said, we'll go ahead and schedule it. So I scheduled it, and I didn't know it. It was his own home he was buying, but he's also an agent.
Oh, wow.
So he's used me exclusively since. Brittany's used me exclusively since. And now me and Daniel are actually really close friends. And we're doing a charity golf tournament next month together for Wheatley Realty. So he started talking, them two started talking to other agents in that same office. And it got to where the broker of the office, Matt Wheatley himself, gave me a phone call one day out of the blue. He was like, hey, I was like, because it showed his caller ID. I'm like, is this Matt Wheatley himself? And he was like, yeah. He goes, I got an inspection that I want done. And I also want you to come in and train some of my agents. I'm like, okay. And this was probably like 2 months into being an inspector. And so I was like, okay. So I did his inspection. And then the next week I went in and we did a lunch and learn type thing. I did more of them telling them about, fire-based home inspections. And then we went out to a house that he had got approval through the owner and everything. And I went out and showed them what we look for as home inspectors.
Like obviously, a field trip, took the agents out.
Yep. I think there's 8 of them that came out with me. And so we went out and did this house, and I explained everything, what we do and how we look for things. And I think it was like a $1.2 million home. But either way, I showed them everything that they should be looking for as a agent when they're doing a walkthrough with their client. And they were so impressed with me. Matt was so impressed with me. He uses me exclusively now. He said that I fell in his lap right at the right time because his real estate agent moved out of the state, or not his
inspector. Yeah.
Moved out of the state. But he's like absolutely, like, he calls me every time. And now I'm to the point to where I thought that I had every agent at that office that uses me, because there's about 15 or 20 of them. And they've all used me at least once. But there was one who just called me before I got on here with you and said, hey, I need some inspection early next week. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let me look and see what I got for you. And I was like, I've heard about you, but I forgot you work for Wheatley. But the cool part about it is I haven't really marketed since that first week, Kevin. So it's been word of mouth since. Now, I did go out every now and then. I would go out and do a couple open houses or something like that, walk by and say hi. Nothing's really much came out of those, though, other than that first week. It's been one person talk to the next, talk to the next, talk to the next, and it's all been word of mouth. And so far, I like that. And the reason I like it is because if I'm telling you, hey, call David with fire-based home inspections, then that I've used him, and I'm verbally telling you ought to use him, instead of me just walking in and saying, hey, I'm David with fire-based home inspections, here, please use me, So I've had stronger relationships because of that. And those strong relationships with agents are much better than somebody just calling me out of the blue because they found me on Google or whatever it may be. So at the very beginning, I had a girl that called me, found me on Google. I don't know how she found me on Google. I had my website up. I did all the Google verification and stuff. Somehow she found me. When I searched myself, I couldn't find myself. But I went and did this inspection. It was an insurance inspection. It was early on also, like first couple weeks. And her insurance agent called me the next day and said, I've never seen people take pictures like this before. Who are you? And I'm like, I'm David with fire-based home inspection. She's like, this, because I thought I did something wrong. She goes, your pictures are amazing. How you do everything. She goes, I need to get your information. I'm going to start using you. And she's used me on every single one of her insurance jobs since. I think about 18 times she's used me since then.
Wow.
So yeah, and so it's that relationship. I grab it and I haven't let it go, and a lot of it's because when they call me, I answer the phone, and then a lot of them is like, every time I call a home inspector, he never answers the phone. He never answers the phone. It's aggravating, or they got to talk to some call center, I like answering the phone, and it's going to be me until I can't handle it no more. And at that point, I'll probably just hire one person that I know
That you can train well, that can really
Yeah.
represent your brand the way you do, right?
Correct.
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, and then I forgot his name, called me to check up on me. And when I was telling him about everything, he was like, I gotta tell Kevin. I gotta tell Kevin. And because I hadn't realized I'd done 97 inspections, Kevin, part-time. I didn't go full-time until about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really? So you still had the job. You still kept the job.
I had to.
Okay.
I didn't think I had enough work yet. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was getting quite a few jobs, but it was kind of like 1 week it'd be loaded, and I'd have to actually do jobs after my full-time job, like 4:30 appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next week I wouldn't get hardly anything. And it was kind of scary. It's like back and forth. But what happened was we had a death in the family, and we had to figure out a way to get our son back and forth to school this year, because my mother-in-law and father-in-law used to take him to school. My father-in-law passed away, so I had to figure out a way to get my son back and forth to school, because he goes to school in a different city than where we live. Mm-hmm. So bus is not going to work. So me and the wife were talking about it, and we're like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just try it. Let's give it a shot. And so I put my 2-week notice in at Gatorade. The day I put my 2-week notice in, I didn't get a phone call for 5 days.
Oh.
And so I was like, what have we done?
The universe testing you. Yeah, it's a test.
Yeah. And so I just told my wife, so got to keep the faith, And so then I started getting a phone call here, phone call there, 3 phone calls here, 1 phone call there. And the day I left Gatorade, I booked 4 home inspections for the following week. 4 home inspections. And before I left, that was on a Thursday. Friday, I got another couple inspections, and I already had the following week booked up. What
did that
feel
like?
And I was like, yeah, that felt so relieving. And I was like, all right, so we're getting somewhere. I don't know where all these phone calls came from. I mean, I started doing the Google Ads thing, but I had done that for a little bit before that. Nothing really worked. I'm saying it right. I don't know.
Was it new agents or clients that
new agents, new clients, current agents, current clients? I have probably about half the agents that use me exclusively are part-time agents, so they have a full-time job, and the other half are good producing agents. I do have one that found me on Alignable. I don't know if you ever heard about Alignable.
I have, yeah.
So I got on there one day because my wife's friend said, hey, you ought to try Alignable, because she sells candles on the side. So I just signed up one day. I never really did anything with the profile. And all of a sudden I get a phone call from this agent named Maureen. And she was like, hey, I need a home inspection done in the next 3 days. I'm like, no problem. And like always, like Ben Gramika used to say, just say yes. So I was like, yes. And they were like, okay, yeah, we need a 4:30 appointment, a later appointment. I was like, all right, I got 4:30 available, which works for me because that's, I work during the day.
Yeah.
So I did an inspection for her, and she was so impressed. She actually has 2 assistants. I didn't know at the time she was high producing. I thought she was just another agent calling me.
Right.
So I go out and do this inspection, and she sees the report, and they're like, wow, your report looks awesome. And so the next time they call me, and then she calls me up one day and says, hey, I'm part of this marketing group called BNI. We want you to be part of it. I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. The problem at the time is they meet at 7:30 on Wednesday mornings. I have to be at my full-time job at 6. So there's no way I would make that. So I told her, I said, I would love to be part of it. I just can't do it right now. So when I decided to leave my maintenance job and do this full-time, I called her up and I was like, hey, I'm ready to be part of that group now. So now I'm part of that group. And I actually got a meeting with a guy today, a contractor. He's a roofing contractor from our group that wants to offer wind mitigation certificates to his clients once he does roof.
Oh, interesting.
So he was like, I want to use you to do the inspection for me. So it's kind of like, it's a group where I don't know if you know what BNI is, but you kind of, throw people leads in the group. And come to find out that one insurance agent that's given me 18 jobs is part of a BNI group in another city. It's like full circle. I was like, wow, and because when she found out about it, she was like, hey, I seen that you were accepted in the BNI. And it's just the roller coaster. And I've done 97 jobs part-time is what he told me that day, because he called me the day after I left DirecTV, or I'm sorry, left Gatorade. I used to work for DirecTV way back in the past.
Okay.
So the day I left Gatorade, he called me and said I'd done 97 inspections. So apparently I'm at 137 right now. So my goal was not 200 inspections this year. I told my wife my goal this year was to be somewhere around 50 inspections. And then maybe next year in the spring, when it starts getting busy, go full time. That's what our goal was. I didn't expect to be at 137 inspections. So I told my wife a couple of days ago, I said, my new goal is 200 inspections this year, my first year. And mind you, it won't be a full year, it's 11 months. But that's my goal, 200 inspections. And I already have 68 5-star reviews on Google. Because, and I would have more, but y'all's software asked for that review after the report, So people give me a 5-star review, they're thinking that they're giving me a 5-star review, and they don't do it on Google,
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually have more than 67 at this point, 67, 68. Anyhow, so what I've been doing with that, because I was told that you can take that out.
You can flip that off. Yeah. Flip it off,
yeah.
Insert your Google link.
So, but I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? You're going to have some people, like I've had a couple people give me, like this one lady, she was a investor from out of the country that I did a report, and she gave me 3 stars on the report, no comments. Why you gave me 3 stars on the report? No comments. And then this other lady was upset because in the report, I put that there's no running water in the front bathroom, so I cannot test the shower and the sink.
Right.
So I put that in the report. I can't. There's no running water. Well, when they got the water turned on, there was a leak. So she gave me 4 stars on my report because there was a leak. And I was like, I told you I can't run the water. There's no water. How am I going to be able to find that? Anyways, so I started thinking that I can use that as a safety net. Okay. So if they decide, hey, for whatever reason like that, weird reason, then I won't send them a message. So the people that give me a 5-star review on Spectora, I send them, as soon as I see it, I send them a text with my Google link and saying, hey, I really appreciate you giving me a review on my reporting software site. Could you please give that same report on Google? That would be very excellent of you. I would really appreciate it. And probably 8 out of 10 people do.
Wow.
So,
that's a great conversion rate to get 2 back-to-back 5-star reviews from people.
And I've gotten, I think 3 or 4 days ago, I got both the jobs I did that day, did the same exact thing, put the 5 stars on Spectora. And I was like, I sent them a message and both of them gave me a 5-star review. So my goal is 100 5-star reviews before the end of the year. So these are personal things. These obviously they might bring me more business, but it's more of myself. My goal, I do have a lot of companies that are in this area that are franchise companies, inspection companies. And so they have like 300 or 1,000 5-star reviews. They're obviously using a review site. And are those 1,000 reviews that person that owns that franchise, or is it the whole, company? But my goal is, there's one of them that has like 280 reviews and it's 4.8. I want to get to 300 reviews by the end of next year, because I'm number 1 in Google right now in my town of Groveland. Groveland's growing fast. It's got a lot of homes being built. So those homes are going to start flipping. People are going to start selling them, and they're going to need home inspections. So I'm already number 1 in Groveland because of being 68 5-star reviews. My goal is to be number 1 in Clearmont, which is the next big town over. And that's where all the other home inspectors are. And then obviously move my way over to Orlando, which is obviously, how big Orlando is. So I'm taking little chunks off at a time. I'm already to the point where me and my wife's talking about possibly hiring somebody. I didn't even think I was going to be full-time until like spring of next year. But because of how I communicate with my agents and my clients, and they feel such security when I'm there, knowing that I'm not going to scare their client. Yesterday, I just had a meeting with an office that I went to open house a couple times. I handed him a card, and he finally called me in. He was like, "Hey, we had a bad experience with our inspector the other day, and that's why we decided to call you in to talk to you." He had a 97-page report.
97.
Yeah, he was taking pictures of defects that weren't even defects, just a wall with a scratch on it, and it scared our clients, and we didn't appreciate that. And I want to see what you can offer us. So what I did was I had my laptop, pulled it open, set it on the table with him and a few other people that were sitting there. And I showed him a report that I had just done the other day. And it had a red on it. Because I do the blue, orange, and red, just like it's on the report. The only time I'm going to do red is if it's safety or you have an active leak on your roof. Okay. Right. Because I want to let you know, hey, you got a serious problem. Most of my stuff is orange, and then the blue is just, hey, don't even worry about it. It's just something I'm letting you know. I'm letting you know I've seen it. That way you don't come back later and say you missed this. Right. So I put that on the table and I explained it to him. I showed him, him and the other agents sitting there. And I was like, this is how I do it. I'm showing you this one. I know you're talking about how you scared how your inspector scared the client. And I want to show you that this red right here is an active wall leak in a mobile home. And I showed them the video, which they love. People love the videos. So I got into where I used to do like 4 or 5 videos each report. Now I'm up to like 25. The problem with that, Kevin, is it takes forever for it to load up.
Yes.
It takes forever. Yep. But I love it because a lot of people that I'm doing inspections for are not at the house. Okay. So I want them to understand and hear my voice. This is what your problem is. It can be fixed or whatever it may be. That way that lowers the phone calls to me afterwards, because I'm trying to schedule other work. I'm trying to do other things, meet with people, things like that. So that lowers the phone calls a little bit, but I'm always available. I tell them, you want to call me? I'm always available. I've answered the phone, I think 3:30 in the morning. Somebody called me. I don't know why they were up 3:30 in the morning. Anyways, so I showed him and I was like, this wall had an active wall, leak in the wall. And I told the client, hey, you got a leak in your wall. But if this is where you want to be, if this is your home, this could be fixed. Y'all can deal with it as far as the negotiations, and you can move in this home. And they decided to go through with it. Okay. So I told him, I was like, even if I put a red in there, I'm going to explain it to your client in a way that, hey, this can be fixed. Anything can be fixed, right? Unless your home's actually falling down, it could be fixed. And they were very impressed with that. And they was like, well, we got some inspections coming up soon. We're closing on a few houses. We're going to be giving you a phone call. And they've never used me. I've only met them twice at open house. Didn't know it was them both times. I just happened to be the same person. But it was just a few times. I think I've only went out and done open houses probably 3 or 4 times since that first week. Everything's been word of mouth. Everything's been, it's been a blessing, really. And I filled up my goal. I told my wife when we started this full time is do 20,000 a month. If I can do 20,000 a month, we're gonna be good,
Life will be good.
So for the first 3 weeks that I was out of Gatorade, if this week was a little slower, but still made more money than I would have made at Gatorade. But the 3 weeks before that, I was on track to do that 20,000. Beautiful. And so it's just amazing that I've done 40 inspections already in 3.5 weeks of being out. And they keep coming. Every day I get 2 or 3 phone calls, people wanting inspections done, and I'll get those people every now and then. Hey, I want to know what your fee is. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not the cheapest person, but I'm also not the most expensive person. You're going to find cheaper people out there, but I can promise you that there ain't nobody can do a home inspection and make the report look as pretty as mine, So, and I do offer other things like the buyback guarantee, things like that. But it's my reporting software that keeps people coming back, I think, and who I am talking with them. And so I have a lot to thank you guys for, because I wasn't even gonna go with you guys at first because I just didn't know if I could afford it every month, but it's at this point, it's the cheapest investment that I've made, to be honest with you, because it's brought me back work over and over and over again to pay for it a million times over. So that's pretty awesome.
Oh, what a journey. What a story. And there's so much I want to dig into here. First of all, there's so much right you've done and so much that just who you are has come out because so first of all, yeah, the ROI on software, it's like something you had to feel. But like it's funny when you tell clients, hey, I'm not the cheapest. It's like what Spector, it's what we say. We're like, hey, we're probably gonna be the most expensive, but there's a reason for it. And then they feel it. I want to dig into your humility and lack of ego because when I hear you explain to a client, hey, this is all fixable. Hey, red items, it's going to be safety hazards. Not every inspector does that. And where do you feel like that comes from in you in terms of not feeling like you have to like prove something via 97-page report? Where did you learn that? Was that purposeful? Did you learn that along the way? Like talk a little bit about the lack of ego.
Well, when I was younger, I had a lot of ego problems. I had a lot of, young gun type
Yeah.
thing. But a lot of it came through life. So I'm a veteran. I spent time overseas, fighting for the country.
Thank you for your
And
service, by the way. I'm an Air Force brat. Grew up 30 years Air Force kid.
I remember hearing that in one of your other podcasts. But so and when I got out, I was a police officer. And a lot of people don't know that about me, but I was a police officer for almost 5 years. And so a lot of that stuff humbled me. Things I've seen as a police officer, not so much what I did. It's just things you have to see. Same thing with firemen and EMS people. You see things you don't want to see. You see things that's kind of hard to get out of your brain. So and the same thing with being over in Afghanistan. There's things you've seen that's hard to get out of your brain. So, but that kind of humbled me and like brought me down to earth from being that young kid that thought I was, everything. But as far as home inspecting goes, I worked for the last 4 years at a plant that always had problems with machines breaking down. And it's like you would look at it and be like, man, I don't think we can ever fix this thing. This is horrible, break or whatever. But yet it can be fixed, and I've seen that. And it's like when I started this company and I would go to a house and it'd be like, okay, well, there's a hole in the roof, but you know what? It can be fixed. It can be fixed. I know it can be fixed because I've seen something way worse that's been fixed,
Right.
So it's kind of that. It keeps me calm because I've seen worse. Okay. So it's the calmness of my voice is what gets those people comfortable with things. I'm not trying to lie to you. I'm not trying to say, hey, it's all right. It's not that big of a problem.
Right.
I'll look at you and say, you got a hole in your roof. You got a problem.
Right.
Okay. But it can be fixed. You got water in your wall, and I like to investigate and see why. And it came from the windows right next to it. They had it all caulked up. So they knew they had problems and they were trying to hide it. I love finding stuff like that, So the only thing I really go in and try to tear completely apart is new construction. I get
right.
people, because we get a lot of new construction in this area we're living in. We get a lot of neighborhoods being built right now. And so they'll call me, hey, they're giving me the runaround. I need to do, oh, you know what? I would love to come out and do that inspection. And I'll come out and I will tear them apart. Just the other day, I had a guy calling me. They were trying to get him to close on his house that day. And he had no electricity on the bottom floor and no AC on the top floor. And I told that guy, I was like, sir, do not close today because they're going to drag this thing out. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, let me come inspect it. And he told me the company that's building the house. I was like, yeah, I've already done 2 inspections this month with them. I know who they are. They don't like me. So let me call them. So I've got his schedule for Monday. And they're supposed to have everything ready. But they were trying to get him closed last week. And they weren't ready. But this is the 3rd time, So I'm a little different when it comes to new construction because I know that everything's under warranty. And so I try to tear it apart. So I don't know if that's non-humility. I don't know. But the point is when it comes to somebody's home, that maybe 1965, 1985, it's going to have problems.
Right.
You're buying a home that's been sitting on the same ground for this long. You're going to have issues. Just like I know I've heard a home inspector with the step cracking. We get a lot of step cracking down here in Florida because the concrete shrinks and dries, or they mix it while it's raining because it rains here all the time. And so it causes step cracking once it dries. And it's just hairline cracking. And I've heard agents tell me that home inspectors saying, hey, there's a structural problem. And they've actually called me. I ain't even been in business a year yet. Call me to come out and inspect it and tell them it's not structural. And it's not. Step cracking is not structural. If you got structural, it's going to be straight up and down, and it's going to be gapped. But you got step cracking, and I'll put it in my report. You got step cracking. It's minor. It happens. So it's just one of those things where I've seen a lot worse. So what I see on home inspections, you're not going to surprise me enough to where I'm going to be like,
Right.
So
Love that. I want to go back to what I call like the do or die moments that you mentioned, because a couple of them stood out to me. And I think it's important to highlight for anyone that's following kind of in your footsteps. So take me back to when you met Brittany, when you went into that office. Was there a front office person? What did you say? How did you get to shaking hands and sitting down? Because I want to know how you met that first kind of seed relationship. Like, what was that like?
So that was kind of funny because I showed up early and there was no one there. A lady named Wilda was showing up. She was the only car there. And apparently they don't get there till 10 o'clock or something like that, or whatever.
Agent hours. Why did you go to this office in the first place? How did you even find it?
It was in the town, Clearmont,
okay,
close to where I live. I just kind of looked up, I Googled, realtor offices, Clearmont, and I did that for a little while. But yeah, I went over there and I met Wilda. She's used me a couple times. But she's one of those agents that give you 3 home inspectors to call.
Yeah.
And one of her home inspectors is cheaper than me, I know, because people call me and never call me back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some will just go with the cheapest. Yeah.
I don't want to be your cheapest. So anyways, so I met her and she was like, well, we don't have anybody here yet, but if you come around 11 o'clock, 11:30, there'll be some people here. And I'm like, okay. So I left and went to another office, which I met Chanel at this different office, Optimal One, and she used me actually that first weekend too. On a brand new, she gave me a cookie cutter, 2020, perfect, nothing wrong with it, cookie cutter house. That was my second job though. The first one was that one that was destroyed.
Right.
Anyhow, so I came back, and so Wilda was in there, and Brittany was in there with another couple realtors, and so I was talking to them. I introduced myself, and I was like, "Here's some cards," because I have my cards made through Internachi, and so I told them a little bit about myself, and I think it was more of, because I was very green in that area of talking to people, like, explaining who I am and stuff like that. I think I've gotten pretty good about it since, but I think it was more of a happenstance. Like, she just didn't have a home inspector and I happened to be there.
Yeah. You were there. You showed up.
Yeah, I showed up, but I impressed her. So now it's like, I'm her guy, so.
Okay.
So that's how that worked.
And to me, the do or die moment was you were at the house, had the leak. You called her and were direct with her. She asked you to talk to the client and you didn't hesitate. And so to me, that felt like a do or die moment where you stepped up, you called the client, you were very transparent about everything, and you did her a favor, right? Because she was on vacation. So like, you probably won some trust right there, right?
Yeah. And whenever they decided not to go through with the house, okay. And so when Brittany told me that, I was like, oh man. I told her, I said, I'm so sorry. So I was trying to think quick on my feet. Okay. And so I sent her a text back because I remember Ben Gromiko saying that if something falls through because of my report, I'll give you 25% off your next one. Well, at the time, I didn't have that kind of money to be saying, here, I'll give you 25% off, but I did it anyways. I told her, I said, listen, tell your clients, I'm very sorry. And I'm very sorry to you. I don't want to be considered a deal killer. So I offer 25% discount off the next home inspection if you use me with that client. And she goes, oh, I really appreciate that, but they've already told me they want to use you again.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
So I was like, man, I could have saved myself 25%, but I'm a man of my word. And that's what I did. And they had another big house in a different city, and I went and inspected it. And there were some issues on that house too, but it was good enough for them to be okay with, so and they ended up buying the house. And that was my first 5-star review is from them. So,
and we'll never know if it was because you stuck to your word, you had integrity, you said you were going to do something, you did it. We'll never know, but you seem like you have faith and, hey, do the right things. and good results will happen, which I love. The other do or die moment that I want to highlight is you called the other guy after he started booking inspection and stopped. And you said it was about 10 minutes, right? You deliberated for about 10 minutes, but you took action right away. Whereas new inspectors might be scared to do that. Some don't even like look at those or turn on those alerts. That to me felt like a step up to the plate moment for you, because you sold them on the spot.
Yeah.
Talk me through just even the hunger to do that, because it takes hunger to do that.
Yeah. So at this point, and this was early on, I think I had only been doing it for a month and a half or so. So February, March, maybe into March. I started getting, I don't know, desperate's not the right word. From the day one, when my wife said, hey, check out home inspecting, it's been like a downhill, like, it's like I'm getting faster and faster. It's like I want it more and more as I got. And then finally, when the company started and I seen myself in the uniform for the first time, and my wife took pictures of me outside our own house to put on the website. I built my own website, it's just been the hunger of wanting. I want more. I don't want to stop. I'm not happy with just 2 jobs a week. I'm not happy with just 4 jobs a week. I'm not happy with just 8 jobs a week now. I'm not happy with that. And when I say not happy, like I'm not sad. I want more. I want more for my family. I got a 6-year-old. Okay. Part of the struggles of my life, I'm 44 years old and I got a 6-year-old. But part of the struggles of my life was, I've been married and divorced once. Okay. Told I couldn't have kids. And then I met my current wife, and we were blessed, and I have a 6-year-old. So again, I've been through worse than a roof leaking, right?
Right.
So, I want to leave something for him when he gets older. I want him to look up and say, my dad started this multi-million-dollar company and I get to take it over, and
I just got chills, by the way. That just gave me chills, David.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want. He and my wife are the reason why I drive myself every day. Okay. My wife working at the school system. She just got promoted to assistant principal.
Shout out.
Yeah, this year. Yeah. So I love you, babe.
Shout out, wife.
Anyways, so she got promoted to assistant principal, but she has a rough job and she drives an hour to school because they kind of put them wherever they want to put them.
Right.
So I want to be able to pull her out of there and work with the company full time.
Yeah.
I want to. I got a good buddy of mine that I used to work with way back in the past. You heard me say DirecTV, but I worked with him then. I know how he deals with clients, and so he would be my first hire. He owns a lawn care business, but he has a guy that actually runs it for him, and he kind of helps. But he's available during this winter to come ride with me for every other week. And so he's going to do that. He's going to look into Internachi, and we may, because I'm telling you right now, by the time I get to next spring, I'm going to need help. I got to have help because like I said, you can look back on my scheduling. I have been booked, and so, so the driving force is my wife and my son. And I want to leave something for him. I'm fighting an uphill battle currently with these bigger franchise companies that offer lower prices. We have like Max Home Inspection and Win Home Inspection.
Yeah.
They're franchise. Well, either way, I'm fighting a battle a little bit with them because I can't afford to charge somebody $275 for a full home inspection.
No.
I got to put food on my family's table.
Yes.
So I'm working the price thing. I don't even worry about it. I don't try to compete with them. I compete with them other ways, with an agent talking to another agent saying, hey, he's very responsive. He answers the phone. He'll get back to you right away. He's very good with your clients. That's how I'm building the business. And that's how I want to continue building the business. And that's why it's kind of hard for me to hire somebody or do something because I don't want to mess that up. That's going to be hard for me to let go because I'm just hoping that at some point I'm going to have to kind of let go a little bit of some of it because I can't do it if I'm going to be a multi-million-dollar company one day.
Yep.
And and outcompete these other companies that are here, have been established for a long time, I'm going to have to let go a little bit. I know that. But as long as I can keep my hand in it, I'm going to, because I feel like this has been built because of what I've been doing,
Yes.
you know, so.
Because and people have to be
it's
an
not a lack of help from my family either. We have a small knit family here. You know, my mother-in-law watches my son for me so I can go do late PM jobs. And, you know, my wife, you know, doing a lot of helping too. She does my social media. She's pretty awesome. So, you know, it's not from a lack of help from the family, but as far as going out face to face, it's been all me. So.
Beautiful. That and that makes sense, because there's no other choice when you're confronted with go the extra mile, do something unscalable, reach out, you know, give your all to something. Trust me, I know what that's like when it's like, oh, this has to work. This is going to work, and I'm going to win. I like talking about competing with the bigger companies that are, you know, maybe going the opposite direction on price. Let's talk a little bit about kind of how you're viewing that, like how to value stack, how to promote to agents that, hey, look, I'm a little bit more expensive, but look at this long list of things that you're going to get with me. There's a reason for it. How do you view that? And we can even brainstorm here for a few minutes of like how to stand apart from the ones that are kind of racing the other direction on price.
It's not only just the big companies. There's a couple guys in my area that do it part-time.
Yeah.
So they charge a lot cheaper because they have another job. So I'm competing with that a little bit too. But I'm not worried about them, because they're going to be one of those in and out companies. Yeah. They're not going to last very long.
They'll run themselves ragged. Their margins will be crap, and then they'll be out of business. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm building something here. So what I feel what stands me apart right now is the fact that I'm willing to, and there's a guy over that owns one of the franchise that only does 2 appointments a day and does not work Saturday and Sunday. Okay. Now my wife works for the school system, so I would love to have my Saturday and Sundays off my wife. But you know what? If you call and say I need an inspection done Saturday, I'm going to do it.
Yep. Okay.
So that sets me apart from some people like him. Some of the other big companies do work weekends. What sets me apart from them, I believe, is more of I'm local to this area. So I'm from Central Florida. I grew up in Lakeland. So I advertised that I'm veteran owned and locally owned. Okay. Ooh. So that hits people. I've had actually people call me and say, hey, I called you because you're a local company.
Local.
Okay. And they know that these other people aren't, you know. So I think I'm setting myself apart with that a little bit, with my reporting software. Most of it, like I said, it's been word of mouth. So a lot of these people have used these bigger companies before. They don't even call me and ask me my price. The ones that have talked to each other and use me exclusively now, they just call me and say, David, I need an inspection done the next 5 days. David, I need an inspection done in the next 3 days, because they're trying to be competitive with their offers.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get done in 3 days. Well, if you're one of those guys that don't work weekends or don't do late PM appointments, I'm going to get that job from you. And if that's the first time your agent's using me, I can guarantee you I stole your agent away.
Love that.
I am 100% confident that if I use your agent uses me one time,
you're winning.
I've got your agent. They're mine now. And the reason why is because of all the other things I'm willing to do. My responsiveness on the phone, my reporting software. I get to report to you before I leave the house. They love that. They love it. You know, so I think that's kind of how I'm setting myself apart with all that. So.
I love all that. I love that so much. That may be the title of this podcast. If I meet your agent and do one job, they're mine. And that's the supreme confidence. Huge fan.
I have not had not one of them not call me back for a second one. Yeah. Every single one that's used me once has called me back at least a second time. So,
and that's because of all the things you said, and I think you stand by it, and it's clearly working. David, man, the hour flew by. This is awesome. This is you packed in so much value into this. What else did we not cover or talk about?
I got a funny thing on a couple agents that I won. So I had somebody call me from a Lakeland office saying, hey, we need a pool inspection done. Mm-hmm. And this is like an hour from me, way out in the country. The inspector that they hired don't do pools. I was like, no problem. I'll go do the pool inspection. I probably lost money on the gas out there and back,
Yeah.
but I went and done the pool inspection. They called me later that night and said, your report is amazing, because now they got to see it beside the other home inspector, my pool report and their regular home inspection report. And they were like, your report's amazing. We have an agent, her son's buying a home. She's our lead agent. She wants to use you to inspect her son's home. No problem. So I went and done the inspection on this home over in Lakeland, right? The buyer, the seller's agent, or the seller, was so impressed with me that he used me on his next home he bought. All right. That agent's already called me back for another inspection I got next week. The seller's or the buyer's agent on that same one, that for her son. The sellers on that job that wanted me to use for their next job or for their next house they were buying, they are good friends with the realtor that had to call me that day. And this was the day I was leaving Gatorade, by the way. So she called me and she said, hey, they want to use you on their home they're buying. He was very impressed with you and everything, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I just want you to know that we're real good friends with them. And my boyfriend's a home inspector too. But they're wanting to use you over my boyfriend that they're good friends with. And I was like, you know what? You just made my day. You just made my day right there. And so I went and done the inspection for them, and another 5-star review, so, and then this other instance was a similar situation to where a family member of the sellers, they wanted to use me on their next inspection. Mm-hmm. And then their mother was so impressed with me, she used me on her inspection. And then her mother-in-law used me on her inspection. So it's like, I know for a fact that who I am and what I'm doing is helping people in a positive way when I see stuff like that. When I get people continue to call me back for things, because I know sometimes people are like, I spent $600 on an inspection. He didn't find a couple things I could have found, That's not the experience. The experience is who you're dealing with at the time. And how that person's dealing with you and how he's talking to you. I try to treat everybody, for the first time I meet them, I try to treat them like family, shake their hand. I'm David Scruggs. It's nice meeting you, hand them my card, So I'm always that way with people. And people just love that. And the agents love it, because apparently some of these big box home inspection companies, they're not doing that. They're in and out. All they want to do is get and do the inspection out. I'm not that kind of person. I want to get to know you. So that's something that's really standing me apart, I believe. So.
That's so well said. And I think the big companies lose that when it's just someone who has no attachment to the business or the buyer, no empathy for what they're going through. That's it. I love that story that you said yes to going to Lakeland, pool inspection, probably lost money, but you made money in the long term, right?
Right.
The coming weeks, that was maybe a great return on investment on the gas money. Right. Man, this is awesome. Let's do a follow-up. I want to do a follow-up pod with you, in 6 months, 9 months. We'll see where you're at.
I would love to go.
But thank you so much for like telling amazing stories and setting such an amazing example of the kind of energy and enthusiasm and kind of warmth that I think is needed to succeed. And everything you've gotten is clearly well earned and feels like serendipity sometimes, but it's like you created your luck, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard work and just being who I am, which was the easy part, I'm not fake. I'm just who I am. I'm a soft-hearted, caring person, And what's funny is I told my wife, like the first or second week I was, looking into being a home inspector and doing my classes, I was like, this is back to our podcast. And she's like, oh, talking about home inspections again. I was like, I'm telling you, I'm going to be on this one day. And so when I told her the other day that you're calling me, I was like, I've made it.
You made it. And
I've made it.
And there's
she'll probably say something like, yeah, okay, we're talking about home inspections again.
Yeah, but
she's the one that started it.
This is full circle, and it's something definitely to be proud of, because there's so much here that you've done. You actually went out and did it and have a story to tell versus I'm going to do all this, and you're just probably getting started too. So it's a beautiful thing, and I couldn't be happier for you.
I know I'm just getting started. This is just the beginning. I'm packed up, and I've just got a couple more texts that I got to answer, but I've packed up for the beginning of next week. And I'm already packed up through Wednesday, and I know I'm going to be packed up the rest of the week. and this is just the beginning for me. When you talk to me in 6 months or however long it's going to be, I can guarantee you I'm going to be at 200, past 200 by then. So
beautiful. If there's new inspectors out there that are inspired by this or want to contact you or kind of network, what's the best way? No pressure. I don't want ever want to like make anyone busier than they already are, but
listen, I'm responsive. I've said it multiple times during this interview. You can call me. I'll give you my number right now, 407-592-7169. Call
beautiful.
me and test me and see if I don't answer the phone.
I love the challenge. I love it. You're so accountable. I love it. Well, I'll link to all your stuff in the description too. I'll link to the website, put the phone number in there for anyone that is looking at you saying, man, I want to be where he is someday, no matter no matter where they are. There's people all over the country and world. So again, thank you so much, David. This has been amazing, man.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. And I got to tell you, thank you and your brother so much for creating the Spectora software. That has made my life. That has made me be able to do 3 inspections a day. Without Spectora, I would not be able to do that. I would not be able to tell a client, hey, I can be there at 4:30 after a 9 and 1 o'clock appointment. There's no way I could do it with anything else besides Spectora. That right there is the reason, because I can go through every job. If I have something new I finally run into for the first time, I put the narrative in there, or I put the little explanation, and then when I get home that night, I'll actually do a proper narrative just in case I run into it again. You know, so I'm always updating my report. It was Ben Grumico's at first, but I've made it my own.
Sure,
I've changed everything and made it my own. So
beautiful, man. You're on top of everything. Big fan. Hey, have a great weekend. And thank you, man. This is great. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Kevin. You have a good one now.
All right. Take care.